بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه تسليما كثيرا اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد فاتمه لما أغلق وخاتمه لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I want to welcome all of you to the introductory class video for our new seminar series called Stations for the Grassroots, which in essence is a topic that is based on the book Manazil al-Sa'ireen by Sheikh Abdullah al-Ansari al-Hirawi, who we will inshallah come to know soon, inshallah. But this particular class has been a long time coming for me, something that I wanted to do for a long time. But just looking for the proper platform in which to do it. This text that we find in the Manazil al-Sa'ireen is one of the most impactful texts on the subject of tasawwuf and spiritual wayfaring that I have ever come across. In my experience, as a seeker of knowledge, a seeker of books. It's a dynamic text that inshallah that all of you will come to learn and come to see the value in this book. Inshallah. This particular class is tailored toward the spiritual renewal or the spiritual tajdeed for the African American community. With that, it warrants a lot of explanation as for the reasons why, specifically, that I want to target the African American community while excluding other communities, or other people, other groups of people. Is this nationalism? Is this something that is permissible in Islam? I know those that would be critical from my observations of things that have gone on in the past. Whenever African American people get together and do something for themselves, there's always some type of backlash, always some type of negative opinion because of the nature of the subject. And we're taught in Islam that there's no race, there's no culture or creed or culture or customs that supersede the brotherhood of Islam, which is true in a sense. It's true in a sense. And with that said, from my understanding of my education in Islam, my understanding is that there is nothing wrong with having a class, having a discussion, writing a book, having a series about a particular people, about a group of people. This is something that's normal. It is something that is quite necessary, in fact. So here at Faida Institute, alhamdulillah, what I want to do is to create a platform by which we can be exposed to traditional Islamic knowledge, traditional Islamic texts, and the manhaj, or the methodology by which those texts are learned and handed down from generation to generation. At the same time, being able to apply that knowledge that is learned from those texts into the proper context to bring about a revival, to bring about a renewal, particularly among the African American community and among the Muslim community in general. Why is that? And I know that's a big point of contention for a lot of people. It is my belief that Islam in America rests on the shoulders of the African American Muslim community. It rests or it sits on the shoulders of the African American Muslim community. And what that means is that the success in Islam, the success that Islam will experience in America will be brought about by the strength and the success of the African American Muslim community. And for this reason, it is incumbent upon people like myself and many others who are bigger than myself of the African American community, Muslim community, to seek to revive first spiritually and then intellectually the African American Muslim community to stand on its own, to be the vanguard and the leaders for the Muslims in America. This is something that is historical, it's political, it's social, all at the same time. And there are those that they may disagree. But the realities of history bear witness to the fact that the African American Muslim community is the key to the success of Islam in America, to the survival of Islam in America. So a few years ago, when I had the opening to create this platform for Faith Institute, I had this in mind, to create a platform, an institution where all people can come learn. Like I said, to learn the tradition, to learn the manhaj, but particularly as an African American man, and I use that term, African American, politically. You hear me say African American, I use your term black man or African interchangeably. To me, it doesn't matter. It's really not as important as some people make it out to be. But as a black man, it was extremely important to me that I reach my community, reach my people, to expose them to books, expose them to texts, expose them to knowledge that they otherwise would not have been exposed to. Given my own history as a student of knowledge, as a student of history, my formal education, alhamdulillah, it gave me an insight into putting and connecting history with traditional Islamic knowledge, which is extremely important. And so my views and my upbringing, my socialization as a black man in America has given me a particular perspective, along with my own education as a student of knowledge in Islam, my travels that I've gone to different countries to study, different people, different shuyukh, living in different cultures, living overseas for a period of time, always being a black man from Inglewood, California, understanding the dynamics of growing up as a black man in America, understanding the history, understanding the pitfalls, understanding and loving the good and the benefit and the love of our neighborhoods, of our families, understanding culture, understanding the way that American culture operates. Given all of that, is giving me today a perspective that I feel that, inshallah, I want to be able to share and to benefit people. Alhamdulillah, Allah has surrounded me with good people. I've come in contact with people whom I've benefited from greatly, both in America and overseas. And this platform by which, alhamdulillah, Allah has provided me with, has given me permission to create, I feel that as an obligation, as a black man, to uplift my people, uplift the community that has been so oppressed throughout the ages, throughout the years of history in America. At this point in time, at this juncture in time, I believe that now is the time, more than ever, in essence, that we need people, we need men to be leaders, we need black men to be leaders, we need black men to be the scholars, we need black men to be amirs in our community to benefit the Muslim community as a whole in America. So for this reason, I wanted to do this class. As I came across this book, Manazil al-Sa'ireen, I was really taken aback by it. I was immersed. I immersed myself in this book for some time. I benefited greatly from it. I read it consistently. It's something, one of those books that you have to just kind of go somewhere, sit on a mountain, sit on a balcony in your backyard and with some tea, and just go over and over and over, because you have to let it marinate, you have to let it digest, you have to digest it to the concept, a lot of what is being said in the book. So it's that type of book that it takes time to go through. And I wanted to share this knowledge because this is a transformative knowledge that I believe, given what we know today as black people in America, given from what we've experienced, both as Muslims and both as non-Muslims. This book, this knowledge, if we can conceptualize it and put it together and apply it in the proper context and our own context, it could be a transformative force that can be a catalyst for change. Insha'Allah. Allahumma ameen. Insha'Allah, make it happen. So with that, I attached the PDF of the Manazil al-Sa'ireen, a version of it in Arabic. And I wanted to kind of give an introductory video before we get into the text itself. So back to the question about why the African American community, the Muslim community, as opposed to any other community. And this is not to be divisive. My intentions are not to be divisive among the Muslims. I'm not trying to, it is not my intention to create fitna, division, any type of argumentation, disputation, or to break up the brotherhood. But when you have a table of people come together for a common cause, and everybody that comes to that table has to bring something to benefit, bring something to the discussion, bring something to the table that everyone can benefit from. And if you're not able to bring something that's of benefit to people, then you can't come to that table. The table won't be complete without your participation. And so the African American community is like this. This is our situation. That the Muslims are sitting at a table, and we are not at that table. We are a commodity. We are a subject. We are put in the backyard because the perception of us is not equal to what people have or perceive others to be. And this is a problem. It's a problem because we have a lot to offer, but because of oppression, because of white supremacy, because of racism, because of so much that has gone on, and there's a myriad of reasons, we're not able to sit at that table with other people at this point. And you can disagree with this. This is my opinion. You can disagree, but the facts, you can look at the community in the state that it is right now, and it proves to what I'm saying. That we're not able, at this point, to sit at a table with other groups of people, and those people look at us in the eye as equal. As equal one unto themselves. And if you were to deny this, then you're just lying. Racism is real. It's as real today as it was yesterday. So the Muslim community has a problem, one, because real brotherhood isn't realized. It hasn't been realized as of yet. True brotherhood. And I'm not talking about individuals. There are individuals, yes, but as a whole in general is what I'm speaking of. As a whole in general, no, it has not been, the true brotherhood has not been realized. When we can look at one another as equals, regardless of skin color, culture, customs, genetics, all those things. When we can look at one another as equal, and as the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us, when you want for your brother what you want for yourself, then you have true brotherhood. But at this point in time, from my experience and for what I've seen, that's not the reality. And that's a problem. So we find the Muslim community in America is stuck with all of the isms and all of the ills and all of the racism, the sexism, the colorism, all of the isms, all of these negative concepts that pervade the non-Muslim community, the community of the kuffar, we find it in the Muslim community. Just the same. Just the same. So it's my intention to bring something to the African American Muslim community that can uplift them, that can show them the true reality, the true worth, the true value, to renew them, to put back together what was once ours, what we had in terms of our identity, our spiritual makeup, our psychological and intellectual makeup. Because all of these things had to be broken down in order to make us who we are today. These are the effects of slavery, the effects of oppression, the effects of racism and white supremacy, imperialism. The process that was done to make slaves is still with us. The mentality, the slave mentality, the poor man's mentality, being dependent, the mentality, that spirit that was created then is with us today. And it's sad to me to say this, but I've experienced racism growing up in Los Angeles as a non-Muslim, but I've never experienced racism as much or in the way that I've experienced it as a Muslim by other groups of Muslims. And I'm sure that I am not the only one. I'm sure that many brothers and many sisters who come from the Black Muslim community can attest to this truth. And that is a sad reality. That's a sad reality. But it's the reality that we live in. Despite what Islam says, this is the reality of the Muslims. And so we understand the difference between Islam and the Muslims. There's a difference. Doesn't matter what culture or country they come from, there's a difference. So when we see Islam, many people, we think that the Muslims are the ones that adhere to those principles and those values and hold and extol those values, hold them in high esteem and live by them. But we soon learn by interacting with one another that that's not the reality. So it's our experience that has to be understood. And those of you who are not from the Black Muslim community, one, I want to thank you for joining us and taking the time and taking the interest to learn about what it is that we want to go, what it is that we want to do, where it is that we want to go in the future. Inshallah, you can be a big part of us achieving our goals. Because at the end of the day, it is going to take a whole community, a whole community that is made up of different cultures, different nationalities, different races. But right now, it is important for the Black Muslim community to step back, step away, gather ourselves rather, and to come back to the table and to make that table strong. That table being the Muslim community in general in the West. Now, so there's much to be said about the pain and suffering of grassroots people all over the world. And grassroots people, the grassroots is something that, of course, we all know that understanding one of my favorite speech given was by Malcolm X in the message to the grassroots. The grassroots people are the indigenous people in America who've suffered white supremacy, racism, colonialism, imperialism, okay, wherever we've traveled, wherever we've gone. The grassroots people are the people in the hood, the people in the ghettos, the people who struggle, people who work and don't get credit for what they do. These are the grassroots. But it's the roots, the grassroots, that make the people strong. These people on the grassroots are not weak people, strong people. The struggles of time have made them strong. It's made us who we are. It's made our skin thick to be able to withstand the spiritual abuse, the verbal abuse, the psychological and intellectual abuse. These are the grassroots. So there's much to be said about the pain and suffering of grassroots people all over the world. Indigenous people, we've suffered everywhere. Colonialism, imperialism. Okay, cultures have been destroyed by Western or European travelers, European colonial powers. And the annals of history bear testament to the fact There have been people that have been completely destroyed. This is a fact, genocide. And as my teacher, my late teacher, the great Dr. Ali Mazrui, who was one of the most brilliant men I've ever met, and he said that and talking about black people all over the world, African people, he said we may not be the most brutalized people in human history, but by far we are the most dehumanized people in human history. That's a powerful statement. It's a powerful statement because the fact of reality is that when you're seen as less than, and that concept, that belief has been carried on to generation to this day, even by your own brothers and sisters in religion. It's very powerful. It's very powerful. So Africans of the diaspora, meaning Africans who spread all across the globe, voluntarily and involuntarily. Now, we've suffered from the tentacles of racism, oppression, slavery. And out of this darkness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent anbiya. He sent prophets to guide people from the darkness to the light, from disobedience to obedience. Now, so we find this narrative in the stories of the prophets, this line, this same thread, all the same. They come to the people and give guidance, and they're rejected. They're rejected by those in power, those in authority, because their authority is threatened. Whenever authority is threatened, authority seeks to stamp out the threat. And so once we understand what racism and what colonialism and imperialism is, and we understand why the target of these colonial powers and racist powers have been black people or African people across the globe. When we understand history and where we come from, we understand it. And we understand that in essence, it really has nothing to do with skin color. But cultures have been taught, and I know this because, we have friends, associates, brothers and sisters who of different backgrounds, and we know how they grew up, we know what they were taught, we know what cultures teach. We go overseas and we live in certain different cultures, and we know the attitudes that about African people and African descendants, the perceptions they have. And it's always interesting when in America, when Muslims in America, the dynamic that works all the history we have in Islam in America, from the pseudo-Islamic groups, from the Nation of Islam to the Moorish Science Temple, to the Nation of Gods and Earths, all of these movements that claim a particular belief, claim a particular creed in the name of Islam, are all rejected. But what is the one person is embraced by all Muslims out of this experience, and that's Malcolm X. And it's always been a funny thing to me. Why is it that this one individual, out of all the individuals that there were, this one individual, he's the one that they embrace the most? What is it that they embrace about Malcolm? What is it they love about Malcolm? People, people celebrate, people of all cultures in America celebrate, or they commemorate the birth and the death of Malcolm. they've seen the movie, they read the book, and they're mesmerized by the life of Malcolm X. They love Malcolm X, both white, both black, Asian, Pakistani, Afghan, Arab, everyone. They love Malcolm X. Why? What is it about him? And it always made me curious, and it always intrigued me. And it begged me to ask the question. They loved Malcolm X, or the idea they had of Malcolm X. But the reality is, you really don't love Malcolm. They love the idea of Malcolm. In order to love Al-Hajj Malik Shabazz, you had to love Malcolm X. And in order to love Malcolm X, you had to love Malcolm Little. And if you didn't love Malcolm Little, if you didn't know Malcolm Little, if you didn't know who Malcolm Little was, if you didn't have love for who Malcolm Little was and what Malcolm Little experienced, what Malcolm Little went through, what Malcolm Little was taught, then you don't have real love for Malcolm X. And you didn't know who Malik Shabazz was. That's just the truth. We, the black Muslims in America, we are Malcolm Little. We are who Malcolm Little was. We have the same experiences, the same education as did Malcolm Little. The vision, the aspiration, but the potential that Malcolm Little had, the honesty, the sincerity that made Malcolm Little who he was, and was that core ingredient that made him who he became. We are Malcolm Little. And the reason why they can love Malcolm X and Malik Shabazz today is the idea of who he was. Because experience is something that is the dividing factor. Other cultures didn't experience what Malcolm Little experienced. We did. We continue to experience that. So we understand Malcolm a bit better than other people. We love Malcolm. Malcolm means a lot more to us than other people. Malcolm is ours. Malcolm belongs to us. And we can't allow other people to take Malcolm away from us. It's always interesting that the only two African people that Muslims don't know are Bilal ibn Rabah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu and Malcolm X. It's the same attitude with Bilal radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that Muslims around the world have about him, that it makes them feel justified in their racism and culturally as a whole, that their culture is perpetuated against African people, but they love Bilal, and that makes them feel okay. And he's the only African that they know. Out of all the Muslims in history that we know of, all the Sahaba, all the Anbiya, alayhum salam, the only one that they know is Bilal. And out of all the African Americans, they come to America, cultures come to America, immigrants come to America, and the only one they love is Malcolm X, or their idea of Malcolm X. But Malcolm Little, they don't want anything to do with. So it's expedient, rather, that we, as a people, bring forth and go beyond Malcolm X. Go before Malcolm and bring out our history, bring out our heritage in Islam, from Africa, from the Americas, that we uproot and reset what we've been taught, the way we've been taught to behave, the way we've been taught to walk, the way we've been taught to talk, the way we've been taught to think. We have to reset it and set it on the middle of the Prophet ﷺ. Set it on the principles that he sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam came with. And then we can be a light for other people as well as for ourselves, for our own people. There was a quote that I know, and that was attributed to Elijah Muhammad, who was the founder of the Nation of Islam, who was a controversial figure, I know, bring up his name. For many people, stirs up some hard feelings. But he said that if you can control the circumference of a man's thinking, again, if you can control the circumference of a man's thinking, then you can dictate the diameter of his thought. It's a powerful statement. If you can control, and you should write this down, if you can control the circumference of a man's thinking, then you can dictate the diameter of his thought. And this is, in essence, the experience of black people in America. Our thinking has been controlled. Our thoughts have been dictated. How deep we think, how profound our thoughts are. Because with the boundary, the box that we put in, the box that people put us in. Because the reality is that we're a commodity. We were brought to America as a commodity, and today we function as a commodity. And the only time people pay us any mind and give us any attention is that if we continue to be a commodity. So the benefit is the profit for them in setting up in our neighborhoods. It's a commodity. We're a commodity. Our culture is a commodity. People benefit from us, whether it's an entertainment, sports, okay, that oftentimes it just looks good to have at least one black person on the panel, one black person on the board. We're just a commodity. And the quicker that we realize the reality of the situation, the better off we're going to be. And there's a lot to be said. But I'm trying to give you a background as to why I think this class is going to be so important. Before we get into the text. Now, so grassroots people have always had to endure tough times, okay? So when we look at Africa or Asia or elsewhere, we find grassroots people, You find stories of courage, stories of bravery in the face of injustice and evil and tyranny. But our situation in America as black people is a bit different, because we continue to live with our former slave masters. So psychologically, there's been a burden that's been placed upon us. And even though we come into Islam, if you look at the black Muslim communities today, you can still see that burden. You still see the traces of racism, white supremacy, and oppression. Just because we've taken our Shahada doesn't mean that all those things now are wiped away. Because the knowledge of Islam, both inwardly and outwardly, has not yet been imbibed within the culture. It's been inculcated within the culture to where we can use it and apply it properly in its proper context to make it benefit us as a whole. There's been individuals who've gone on and gained enormous amounts of knowledge and experience, but as a whole, as a group, we don't find that as of yet. So inshallah, this is one of the goals of Faida Institute, is that we want to bring about this, to regenerate this type of understanding, this type of knowledge, type of experience, so that we can use Islam for the benefit as a whole, to break out of that box that we've been put in, to change the perspective. The most important is to change the perspective we have of ourselves by walking on the path toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. First, inwardly, spiritually, and this is the purpose of this book, Manaj al-Sa'arin, because this book, it takes you on the path of the spiritual wayfarers. It's the path to shuluk, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we are in desperate need of. We need to begin to strip away all of the things that we've been taught, all of the things that we've absorbed from white supremacy and racism living in the West. We need to strip away all of the images and perceptions that other groups, even our own Muslim brothers from different countries, have about us. We need to separate from that for the moment and dig deep down into our own souls, our own spirit, and find that raw, unique, unadulterated path toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and get our own situations together, our own situations straight. Then, inshallah, we can come back to the group and make the whole community better. But it's my opinion that we are crucial, we are key. The black Muslim community in America is key to the success of Islam as a whole in the West. And inshallah, we'll discuss that a bit more as we go along. Now we have situations, now we have a lot of problems in our communities with mental health, spiritual diseases, mental diseases. These things are passed on from one generation to the next, psychological problems. So it's the responsibility of the black Muslim community to pick itself up, to fund itself, to establish its own economic platform. We no longer want to always have the money that we have in the hood to become from outside of the hood. We want to regenerate our own dollars, which means that we have to establish an economic front, an economic platform within the black Muslim community where we can establish our own institutions and do for ourselves. Now, so we have our own set of problems, although we didn't create all of our problems, but it's our responsibility to solve them because no one else is going to solve them for us. So we have to understand this. We have to understand this. This book that Manaz al-Sa'ireen is called Manaz al-Sa'ireen ila al-Haqq al-Mubin. And the text that I've attached to the PDF that we've attached to the class is by the Sharh is by Imam Talmasani, which is the major commentary of the book. There are many commentaries. I have a few of them in my library, but this is the main one, and I found that this is probably the best one to go through, inshallah. There's one that may be a bit easier from Imam al-Kashani, which he really just took this text and made it the basis for his commentary. I've thought out to translate much of it, the first part of the text in any case. So I'll be using that for my own purposes as we go to the text. So we'll go to the text itself, but at the same time we go to the commentary, the explanation of the lines. And we'll discuss different issues, real issues that to put this book into context that deals specifically with the African American Muslim community. Included within the African American Muslim community, and I want to explain that. Like I said before, I'll use these terms interchangeably. But me, I understand something about myself. Me coming from Los Angeles. I grew up in Inglewood, California, which is a city in Los Angeles that's made up of blacks and Latinos. I always grew up with the understanding or the experience that blacks and Latinos essentially had the same experience. We lived next door to each other. We lived in the same neighborhoods, essentially. We went to the same schools. I have just as many Latino friends and Mexican friends as I have black friends. So for me, they kind of go together, hand in hand. Their experience is a bit different, but it's a lot the same because we live in the same neighborhoods. The family makeup is a bit different, but at the same time, it's a lot. You have a lot of it is the same. So when I speak about black people, understand that I'm also including, though I might not say it verbally, I do include the Latino Muslim community as well, or the Latino community in general as well, because it's just my experience being from LA. It's just I look at all one group of people who are oppressed. They're just as oppressed as we are. So a lot of the things that I'll talk about, I'm sure that my Latino brothers will be able to relate to without a problem. As we go, I know that we'll discuss more things in detail. Right now, I'm just mentioning some things as the introductory, for the purposes of the introduction. This class will be something unique because you don't find too many people taking traditional texts, or any text for that matter, and applying them to the African American situation, or applying it to this particular context. So I wanted to usher in that era of studying and looking at the text, traditional texts, but at the same time learning how to apply them to our situation, whether those texts be our books in Aqidah, or books in fiqh, books in usul, books in qawaid, books even in the Arabic language. Understanding how the language applies to our people, it's important. It's important to understand. There's a long history there. So the liberation of black people and oppressed people in the West is what this class is geared toward. Okay, now people will look at this class with a very judgmental eye, critical eye, and they'll have different opinions good or bad. In reality, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care. It doesn't matter, because at this point in time, my concern is to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I can only be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm not in the business of trying to please people. I'm not in the business of trying to make people feel good. I'm in the business of truth. I want to spread truth. I want to spread the reality as it is. As a black man, I can only speak as a black man. I can't speak as a Pakistani. I can't speak as a Palestinian. I can't speak as an Arab. I can't speak as a European. I can only speak as a black man, because that's what I am. That's my experience in the world. It's been my experience in life. It's my experience now. Although I live overseas, it doesn't go away. It's my reality. So that's how I speak. Some things I may say may be a bit uncomfortable for some people. But this is that type of class. And so you should be, you should have a heads up about that. That we will deal with some sensitive topics that make some people feel uncomfortable, may make them upset. But everything that we do will be textually based. One, as this class is. Two, it will be based on real experience. So despite what we know what Islam says, but we know what Muslims do. We're not going to sugarcoat Muslims and the actions of Muslims. We're not here for that. Okay, we're not here for that. This class, I'm not a black nationalist, I'm not a Pan-Africanist or anything like that. As a Muslim, I feel that it's my duty and my obligation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first and only to be a catalyst to uplift and to bring about some light and illumination to the black Muslim community in America. So inshallah, this is just my humble attempt to do that. And Allah gave me the platform in which to do it. Inshallah, that we can go through this text and we will learn a great deal. Trust me, this book will change your perspective of how you think, regardless of where you come from, whether you're black or white, whether you're Pakistani, whether you're Arab, wherever, what country you come from. This book will change you. This is that type of book. It will change your understanding, because it strips you away. It strips you away from all of those things that you understand about yourself, about the world, about spirituality. It changes your approach to Islam. It changes the meaning of what these things, what certain concepts mean to you. Because our knowledge is so limited. And how we understand what knowledge is and how it's used. This is the type of book, in my opinion, that is transformative. Wallahi, I think that this is going to be a good experience for all of us. I'm going to gain probably more benefit from teaching and going over this book than you will listening to me as a student. So inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq and afiyah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts, open our minds to what it is that we are trying to do here. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the sense of reflection and the sense of the intellectual fortitude to be able to digest with sincerity, with honesty, and understanding the concepts that we will discuss throughout this seminar series. And I expect, inshallah, that you will ask a lot of questions. You will have a lot of opinions to give. And what we will do is, inshallah, we have a platform on the Google Classroom by which you can give your opinions. But what I want to do, inshallah, maybe we can start a WhatsApp group. It's easier, I think, to text, to have discussions, because people are spread out, different time zones. To have a live discussion I don't think it would work. People talking all at one time, and no. So I think that we can have a WhatsApp group where we can discuss things by texting. So inshallah, I'll get that started with the next few days, and we'll have a WhatsApp group. So as you listen to the classes, to the class videos, things that you can agree with, or just things that I say that you disagree with, or questions you have, or answers you have to other people's questions, we can text one another and have a discussion like this. So I think that might be feasible, at least for right now, inshallah. So I will communicate with you all once I establish that platform, and make sure everybody is on that platform, inshallah. What we'll do in our next class video, I don't want to make class videos too long. One, because when people listen to someone speak for over an hour, actually over half an hour, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So what I want to do is I want to make these classes 40 minutes long, a maximum, inshallah. But in the next class video, I want to go over what exactly is the manazil, the structure of the manazil, and the author. Sheikh Muhammad Hassan Al-Qadim said that when you read a book and you don't know the author of the book that you're reading, it's like a son without a father. So we want to come to know who the author was, Sheikh Abdullah Ansari Hilary. We want to know the makeup and the purpose and the structure of the book. And then we get into the text and into our own social commentary. And that's when we will begin to have a lot of the discussions that we'll have, inshallah. Inshallah, we can benefit from one another. So with that, I'm going to end this first introductory video. And again, I want to welcome all of you to the seminar class, the seminar series. We have the PDF that is attached to the Google Classroom, so you should download that, print it out, and be prepared to take notes. And inshallah, we can benefit from one another. So with that, if you have any comments, you can always comment on the Google Classroom. You can text me, email me, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Any suggestions you have for the class, anything that you feel might work a bit better, then please, by all means, any suggestions are welcome. I'm an open book. Okay, I'm an open book. So please, I look forward to your questions and your comments and your concerns, inshallah. Until next time, we'll do the next class video throughout in the middle of the week. Probably at least 2 to 3 videos, at least 2 videos a week, for sure. Sometimes 3, depending on how quickly we're going through it, inshallah. So with that, I'll conclude. Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi tasliman kathira. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.